Okay.
Where are we?
Lamed Hamid Aleph.
Okay. Oh.
And we're about a quarter of the way down. Umru Rabbanon, right in the middle of the page. So yesterday, in summary, the Mishnah has an interesting comparison between a man and his ox. A man and an ox can do the same action, where in one scenario, if a man would be liable, the ox would be exempt, and in another scenario, the ox would be liable and the man would be exempt. What are the two scenarios? One is embarrassment. Presumably, it's because the animal doesn't know how to embarrass somebody, and therefore, and the animal in general would be exempt anyway, even if it did, because the payment for embarrassment is only with regard to a man who does damage. Okay, and the other one is somebody. It's a man violates the laws of Shabbos, and an animal does. The man is exempt, and the animal is liable. So Amr Rabbanan Kamed Rav Papa. The rabbi said in front of Rav Papa, "Mimatz Amr Chara Dumya Day." Can you say that the ox was similar to him? Baktani Shara Shabayash Potter, who Shabayash Chayev. In other words, initially we were trying to say in the Mishnah that a man similar to his ox, just like his ox was without intention, so too the man was without intention. Okay, what's the problem with saying the man is without intention? The problem is that according to Rabbi, it means that the man who was Mechal Shabbos did so without constructive intention. And without constructive intention, according to Rabbi, you'd be exempt from lighting a fire. You're only chayav for lighting a fire when you have intention to do something with fire. Yeah. Like, for example, to light up your backyard, or to use the coals. So then the Gemara changes it, and the Gemara says, no. The man did have intention to light a fire, and the animal similar to the man. Just like the man had intention to light a fire, the animal had intention to burn down the thing also. Now the Gemara asks why the animal had intention to burn down the pile of hay. The Gemara says because it has a boo-boo on its back or something, and it's going to roll in the ash, to sort of cover over the wounds. The intelligent ox. Okay. Now that we're saying no, okay, so now we're saying the animal is similar to him. If his ox embarrassed, then he's exempt from damages. However, if he embarrassed somebody, then he's chayav. So the Gemara says, and it's chayav levayish. The ox similar to him had intention to embarrass. How is this possible? So the Gemara says, okay, because one of the ways to you're only chayav on paying baishas for embarrassment if you have intention. But it doesn't necessarily have to be intention to embarrass. Intention to cause harm is sufficient. Okay, if you had intention to cause harm, even if there was no intention to embarrass, you'd still be chayav. So therefore, we could resolve the Mishnah and compare an ox to a person. Rava says, "Masnisim b'shoigig." Our Mishnah refers to an accident. Okay, Tani de Becheskia. Okay, so now let's go through this again. 1 second. Okay, we have two scenarios. Scenario number one is where the man mistakenly embarrasses and the ox mistakenly embarrasses. And scenario number two is the man mistakenly is Mechal Shabbos and the animal does the same thing. They violate Shabbos by burning down a pile of hay. So Rava goes to the opinion of Chizkiah. Everything that happened by accident. If you're Tana de Chizkiah, like the opinion of Chizkiah. The Tana de Chizkiah, Maka Adam, Maka Behema. Somebody who strikes a man and somebody who strikes an animal. Ma Maka Behema, just like a man who strikes an animal. There's no difference between intention or without intention. Between whether he was shagig, he understood what was going on, or bein mezid, he understood what was going on, or bein shagig, or he had some sort of confusion. Bein derech yiridul derech aliyah, whether he struck going down or struck upward. Lepaitcher mama, none of these make a difference to make any exemptions. El chayv mammon, that there's no difference. They're all chayav. Now, what's the difference in derech yerid and derech aliyah? Okay, let's go through each one of these. Mischaven and ein mischaven. Mischaven is a very important category with regard to Hilchos Shabbos. Hilchos Shabbos, you must know what you're doing. If you're ein mischaven, and it's not, you had no intention to do it. For example, let's give a classical instance is somebody schleps a light chair across the mud, and it turns out it ended up making a furrow. That is, he's exempt because he had no intention on digging furrows. If he,
but yet, how certain was the outcome?
As long as
much should he have known that it was going to make a furrow?
Yes, the answer is that it wasn't certain. There was no certainty. If on the other hand he did schlep a very heavy bench, and it did make a furrow, then he would be liable because that is a certainty. Okay, that's the difference between mischaven and ein mischaven. And shayig and mezid, same thing. Also with regard to Shabbos, shayig is very simple. Shayig is always where you roughly speaking knew what you were doing, but you didn't know some of the context. Right? It's become a bad word, context slightly.
You didn't realize it was Shabbat or something.
There you are. So two things: either you didn't realize it was Shabbos, or you didn't realize that what you were doing was prohibited on Shabbos. This is true by almost every type of shayig. Either you forgot what you were doing was prohibited, or you forgot it was being done in a prohibited, on Shabbos.
Like if you accidentally flip the light on.
Exactly.
No.
No, that's not. That's misasek. That's not because you knew it was Shabbos. Well, it could be they didn't know it was Shabbos.
Right.
Let's say you woke up, you thought it was Sunday, you flipped the light. That would be a good example of shayig. If it was instinctive, you always flip the light when you wake up.
Yeah.
That's not shayig because you didn't forget about anything. You just did something instinctive, and that's a different category called misasek. Misasek is sort of where you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah.
Okay, derech yerid or derech aliyah, downward versus upwards. Downward versus upwards makes a difference only in one set of laws, and that is the laws of exile. You only go to exile for killing somebody by accident if you strike him downward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there has to be some sort of downward motion. Now, none of these things make any difference with regard to nezikin. To give you an exemption for money, money, to require you to pay. Okay, so af maka adam letachlik by ben shoyu and ben mezid ben miskam v'sheim miskam derech real derech real chayv mammon el lepatcher mammon. When you strike a man, 1 second. Okay. So Rav is saying is that what happened was the guy lit the fire on Shabbos by accident.
Mm-hmm.
However, according to Chizkiah, there's no difference in terms of accidental or intentional with regard to the laws of Kollel b'derabminei. Kollel b'derabminei, remember, is that you only get one penalty.
Okay.
So even though you won't actually get the death penalty, there's no capital punishment if somebody accidentally violates Shabbos. However, if the because it is something that normally would be in the category of receiving capital punishment, you're exempt from financial payment as well.
Mm-hmm.
So according to Rava, the scenario where he burnt down the pile of hay was an accidental scenario, and he's still exempt from financial payments. The mission says it's a brisa. The brisa says the reason why it's exempt is because he gets capital punishment. So Gemara says no, it doesn't mean because typically speaking, this action is something that incurs capital punishment. And how did that happen to Kabbalah Afra? Because he needed the ash of the pile of hay. Hashda b'shayik potter, so now he's exempt also if it happened b'shayik by accident. Yeah.
But he doesn't need the ashes.
If he doesn't need the ashes, then that would not be malacha. Going back to the original Gemara. Lighting a fire would only be chayav if you need the ashes. That would be the constructive way to light a fire.
Okay, it has to be constructed.
Yeah. I don't really want to take a sidetrack, but
No.
technically speaking, another similar example of this, according to most opinions, would be, let's say somebody has extra brush. He lights a brush fire because he doesn't want constructive action is to get rid of this thing that isn't wanted. So you have a clear land. That would also be chayav. That's also constructive. So one animal's chasing another one, and the animal gets damaged. The victim says the aggressor animal was responsible for the damage. But the aggressor says, he say it's not appropriate to use the word the aggressor. He claims he's not an aggressor. My animal was chasing your animal, but it never killed it. It tripped over a rock, and that's how it died. If the victim wants to collect, he has to prove that the aggressor was actually responsible. Two animals were chasing one animal. Each one says that your animal did damage. They're both exempt. But if they both belong to one person, then they both be liable. Okay. In other words, each one says the other one did the damage, right? Now, if they're owned both by one person, so that's not a good response. It's okay. Well, one of your animals did damage. One animal was large, one animal was small. And the victim says Godel Hizik. The bigger animal did the damage. In other words, what does he want here? More migufai.
You mean?
The aggressor says, no, it was a small animal, so the migufa payment is much smaller. Okay, echatam, one of the animals, let's say, was naive. The echad muad, and the other one was habituated. Right, so what's the difference here? Half payment versus full payment. Hanizigay, where the victim says muad hizik. The aggressor, the muad, the habituated animal, did the damage. Ramazagaymer, and the aggressor says, like el tam hizik. It was the tam. I only owe you half. The victim needs to prove which one did the damage in order for him to collect. The victims were two. So there were two victims, two aggressors. Both of the victims were, one was small, one was big, and of the aggressors, one was big and one was small. So the victim says the big one hit the big one, and the small one hit the small one. The small one hit the big one, and the big one hit the small one. So let's explain. The small one's worth let's say 20, and the big one's worth 100, right? So now if the big one hit the small one, so what does the small guy get? 10, right?
Right.
And the small one hit the big one, what do you get? Also 10. Half the value of Migufay. So yeah, he owes $20. If, however, the small one hit the small one and the big one hit the big one, so the big one hit the big one, that's how much. Half payment of 100 is 50. And Migufay, it's a big animal, pays 50. And the small one hits the small one, it's 10, so it's 60. So you see the difference there. Difference of $40 there. Three times the payments. Okay. The victim says the muad, the habituated animal, killed the big animal. The tam, the naive one, killed the small animal. But the naive animal killed the big one, and the muad, the habituated animal, killed the small one. If the victim has to prove his case in order to get vindicated. And of course, let me ask a different question. Okay, does he get at least $20? In other words, the two animals die, right?
Right.
A big one and a small one. The aggressor says, well, the big one hit the small one, so it's a $10 payment. The small one hit the big one, also $10 payment because it's migufe payments. Right? The small ones were worth 20, the big ones were worth 100. Okay. So the Nizik says, okay, fine. So I want 60. Because I say the big one hit the big one, that's $50. The small one hit the small one, it's another 10, it's $60. I want 60. So I want 60, you want to give me 20. So at least give me $20. Fair enough?
Okay.
Make sense? Right? At a minimum, you owe me $20. Okay, we'll get to it. Amar of Chiba Rabba. This is a big portion of the Gemara. Amar of Chiba Rabba. Chiba Rabba says, Zay Semeres, what do we see from our Mishnah? Chalukan olav chaver of al sumchas. We'll get to Sumchas. He's a pretty prominent character throughout Bava Kamma Mitzvah Basra. What does Sumchas' opinion say? Amar Moman Hamutal B'Safek Chalken. What do we hear? What do we have here? We have money. We don't know what happened to the money. What do? Chalken, we split it.
Okay.
We say, well, okay, 60 versus 40. What's the middle number? 45, right? You got my math here? 50, I'm sorry. No, 60 against 20.
Oh,
Is 40.
Oh, it's 60 against 20.
60 against 20. Right, 60 against 20 would be 40. So that's what we should do. We should split the claims. Each of you have competing claims. This is just another example would be or we'd have in the individual one where I say your animal damaged me, you say no, it was the rock. Right, so I say you owe me 50, let's say, big animal, $50, two big animals killed each other, and you say I owe you 0, so 50 against 0, $25 payments. That would be the opinion of Sumchas. Our mission seems to disagree. Amar Lai Reb Abba Bar Mamla Rav Chia, so Rav Mamla sister Rav Chia Bar Abba Amar Sumchas Afilu Bori. In other words, this is a question he's asking. There's really a few scenarios to bring Sumchas into the picture. Completely realigned. Starting Shachar early today. Totally forgot about that.
Yes, I'm sorry.
What are you saying, Rabbi?
He forgot about Shachar being.
So what time was that? So
6:45.
6:45
start.
So it's just start 5:55. Okay, I totally forgot about that. Sorry.
I actually forgot about it too.
I was wondering why so many people are here.
I forgot about it also, but I happened to wake up without the alarm today.
Okay. Okay, so he says to him, did Sumchas say this with regard to Bori? Bori is two certain claims. Or did Sumchas only say this when nobody knows? It's a doubtful claim. So he says to him, Amar Lai in Amar Sumchas Afilu Bori. You're right, Sumchas said this even in a scenario of Bori. So Gemara says, how do we know this? How do we know the Mishnah is two certain claims? Maybe it's actually, I don't know, and you don't know, and nobody knows. One animal chasing another animal. They ran into a forest, and now it's a dead animal. Well, what happened? Did the chasing animal pursue it until it killed it, or did it trip? So Gemara says, how do we know this? The victim says your animal damaged, and the aggressor says no, it wasn't my animal, it was a rock. Evidently, they're both making certain claims. Mascot of Rav Papa had the following question: Mida Reisha Bori say Fanami Bori. Since the first part of the Mishnah is two certain claims, the end of the Mishnah must also be certain claims. Ema Seifa Echad Gadol Echad Kotan. There was a big animal and a small animal. Nizik Aimer Gadol Hezek Umazik Aimer Loy Kela Kotan Hezek. Right, the victim says the big hit the big. One second. There are two animals. One was large, one was small, that chased after another animal and killed it. We don't know if it was the smaller animal that killed it or the bigger animal that killed it. Maybe one was a tam, one was a muad. Nizik says it was a muad. And the aggressor says no, I kill a tam. The victim has to prove it. Let's say the victim doesn't have proof. Then what happens? He collects like the mazik said. So if that's the case, name it to you to the Rav Arnosim. Let's say this Gemara is a question on Rav Arnosim. The Amar Tone Chitin v'Hoyle b'Sa'arim Potter. Okay, so let's say I say to Eric, I loaned you wheat. And you say, no. I don't owe you $100 of wheat. I owe you $50 of barley. How much do you actually owe me?
Zero.
Zero. Because you didn't admit in the context of what I asked you for. I'm effectively claiming that you never owe me barley. I'm denying that you should be paying me barley. So therefore I can pay nothing. So the Gemara is saying here also, the victim is saying the big animal hit the big animal and the big animal damaged me, let's say. Or it was the muad that damaged me. And the aggressor says, no, it was the naive animal. It was the tom, or it was the smaller animal. So you say, well, at least pay me that. And the answer is no, because you're making a certain claim.
Mhm.
Now, if none of us knew, I think it was the small, I think it was the muad. And the other guy says, no, I think it was the tom. So we don't know what to do. So then it makes sense. You could say, well, okay, at least pay me the value of the tom. Pay me half damages limited by megufay. Fine, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But if, on the other hand, I'm saying to you, you owe me, for certainty, it was your big animal that did damage, and you say no, for certainty it was the small animal that did damage, then we're making two different claims here. There's no reason for me to I wouldn't even get the amount that he's arguing for. Make sense? Because I'm not giving a doubtful claim. I'm not saying, well, what animal damaged me? It was one of yours. I don't know, and I think it was the big one or the muad. No, I'm saying for certain that I saw the muad damage, and you say no, for certain it wasn't the muad. It was the small animal, or it was the tom. So pay me at least that. No. Why should I pay you that? You're denying that happens.
Right.
So this is an absolute dispute of that.
Correct. If it's a bari, the definition of bari is a dispute, is a factual dispute. Okay, so Gemara says Ella must be bari v'shema. It's one guy is a bari, the other guy is saying shema. I don't know. So Gemara says for a second. The Gomer Bari man, the Gomer Shema man. Who is the one who said Bari? Who is the one who said Shema? Okay. The Gomer Nizik Bari, the Gomer Mazik Shema. If it was the victim that says the victim is certain, the aggressor doesn't know. Right? The victim is certain it was the muad. The aggressor says, well, maybe it was the tam. It should still be a question of Rav Nosson. Why? Because the victim is saying certainly it was the muad. The aggressor says, I don't know, maybe it was the tam. So pay me the tam. No, you made a certain claim that it was the muad. Why should I pay you the tam either? If it wasn't the tam, then I don't owe you anything. I'm sorry, if it wasn't the muad, I don't owe you anything because I don't have to forgive the weaker claim. Okay. It must be that the nizik, the victim doesn't know, and the aggressor says certainly it was the tam. Okay, and that's why he pays at least the value of the tam. When we did say for nizik shema umazik bari, ration I mean nizik shema umazik bari. So it must be that the first scenario of the Mishnah also is a scenario where the victim is uncertain and the aggressor is certain. Okay, so in other words, the Mishnah must be a scenario of Bari V'Shema. In other words, and Simchas is telling me, Simchas would argue for a split, 50-50. And in this case, it might even be 50, it might be 25. In other words, the 50-50 would result, let's say, in a quarter of the damage in the case of a tam. You'd split the difference in claim and you'd split the money. And the Mishnah disagrees. Gemara says, "Loy, not necessarily. Seif and Nizik Shema Mask Bari. The Seif in the Mishnah could be referring to where the victim is uncertain and the aggressor is certain. But Reisha, the first part of the Mishnah, is Nizik Bari Mazik Shema. The first part of the Mishnah, where the guy says it was the animal, the victim says it was the animal, the aggressor says no, it was the rock. It could be a scenario where the Nizik is certain and the Mazik is uncertain. So the Gemara says, "V'holadami Reisha Seifra." it's the rate, the beginning and the beginning and the end of the Mishnah are not compatible with each other. They're different scenarios. So the Gemara says, Ami Bari V'Shema, Shema Bari Chad Milsi. Whether the argument of Bari V'Shema, whether it's the victim or the aggressor, is effectively the same thing. It's just a slightly different scenario. Who the Bari was, who the certain claim was, and who was unsure. That's effectively the same case. So you could say that the Mishnah, they're both the scenarios of Bari V'Shema. The question is, in the Reisha, in the first part of the Mishnah, it was the victim that was certain, the aggressor that was uncertain. The aggressor says it was a rock. And in the end of the Mishnah, it was the victim, it was the aggressor that was certain, it was the tam animal, and the nizik that was uncertain, he says maybe it was the muad animal that kills. I'm sorry. I'm Bari V'Shema Bari Chad Melsi. Bari Shema Bari Trey Milinu. But an uncertain claim with an uncertain and certain claim against two certain claims, those two are clearly different scenarios. In other words, there's nothing wrong with putting one part of the Mishnah as both parts of the Mishnah as uncertainty on behalf of one party.
Mhm.
The only question is which party it is, and that varies between the beginning of the Mishnah and the end of the Mishnah. Okay. Continue tomorrow. I'm sorry, I totally did not realize that.
Yes,
6:45. Okay.
Hag Sameach.